So briefly,
That's way cool.
we'll touch on
It goes.
first the seventh day Passover, then counting the Omer a little bit, and then go back into our tractate Pesachim. Okay, so for the seventh day of Pesach, which will be this year on Friday the 13th.
Ooh, that's good, exciting.
Oh, I'm traveling.
You'll be traveling, okay. So could you maybe just tell us a bit about the first paragraph there?
The children of Israel were miraculously saved from Egypt 3 days after leaving. God instructed us to return in order to go Pharaoh into pursuit.
This must have been another midrash, okay? There must be a midrash which supports this notion.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm that in Torah. We ended up trapped between the Egyptian army and the sea. God saved the nation once again through his miracle splitting the sea. The question that jumps out at us when reviewing this is, what was the point of returning after the nation left Egypt? What was gained by this?
Ooh, I know what was gained by that.
What was gained by moving back a little bit towards Egypt? What was gained? So
Well,
we left Egypt,
Did
and then there was like a little traveling in one direction or the other?
it didn't say just coming back just move back a little bit towards Egypt. It says to return. So that's different. In order to go through, so they had to go back and they had to get all that gold that they needed to.
Oh, but that should have been gone the first time, right? It was only traveling a little bit. It wasn't returning into. It was a question of where the tribes.
And you know, where did all this? You know, if you were a slave, where were we going to get the gold?
Well, the gold actually came during the plague of the darkness, right? So that we had little, you know, lights over our heads so we could actually see what was going on and know where the gold was and then ask for it, sort of as wages, arguably. At least that's according to some of the
Great imagination, okay.
Okay, so Diane, you want to pick up there? The Svat Emet, which means the tongue of truth, which is the name of Rabbi Yehuda Leib Alter, who, that's his dates up there, 1847 to 1905.
The Savat Emet explains the difference between the salvation from Egypt and the salvation from the Egyptian army at the sea 7 days later. He teaches that God saved us from Egypt initially in order to make good on his promise to our holy forefathers. We were not really ready to be saved and did not deserve to be saved at that time. God, however, wanted us to deserve salvation because there is a fundamental difference between one who deserves what he receives and one who does not. Being saved and not deserving it does not make one free. Freedom must be earned. Otherwise, the slave remains a slave, albeit without a master.
Yeah, so albeit without a master, the slave is still a slave until we actually earn that freedom.
Till our consciousness is free.
That's why they wandered for 40 years to be put into slavery.
I have a controversial theory on our slavery.
Okay.
It's our slavery is what's it called? Comes around, goes around.
Oh, yeah, besides karma?
Yeah.
Or vida, connected vida, if you were looking for the ifrit on that?
Because Joseph enslaved the Egyptians.
Yes, there would be that. Yes, there is discussion that that's because he essentially sold Egypt out from under them to Pharaoh.
And in the end, he owned all of Egypt, except for certain non-produce bearing land. Like, you know, he owned all the land in all of Egypt. At the end of all that, and essentially turned the entire society from a agrarian free land owning society, was sort of like almost like capitalist society today, except they were agrarian, into serfdom, which is pretty much akin to being enslaved. So,
Yeah, that's a good
so my theory is that, you know, generations later, the people of Israel were enslaved as sort of retribution.
Payback. Yeah, and sometimes those payback come at a painful price. Mike, you want to pick up the next paragraph, please?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you've got chocolate matzah. Please help yourself to, we've got chocolate matzah, macaroons. Oh, and chocolate macaroons. So yeah, we've got a little shmura matzah, which is not round. So, and there's also some charoset on the table.
Oh, good. That's the answer.
After the chocolate Seder last night, I can tell you we really like chocolate out. Oh my goodness.
God, however, wants us to deserve salvation because there is fundamental difference between one who deserves,
Who receives?
between one who deserves what he receives and one who does not. Being saved and not deserving. Did you read that already?
I think we did, actually, so sorry, I think we're actually on the next paragraph, fair enough.
Okay. We earned our salvation. Chazal tells us by
Which are, what does Chazal stand for? We see Chazal all the time.
I don't know, what's this ever?
first time I ever saw it.
Chazal,
Mm-hmm.
Chochamim, Zichronon Livracha.
So
So
the
our-
wise,
Our sages of blessed memory.
Oh.
So Chazal is our sages.
By returning towards Egypt, this took an incredible amount of faith in God. It was because of the expression of faith that we ultimately deserve to be saved. This is why return to a place, the mouth of freedom, when
Whenever
true freedom began.
Okay, so God commanded us to return so that we could leave on our own merit. However, this really only begs the question, why was the Exodus a two-step process? Why redeem us with undeserved miracles first, then redeem us again because we earned it? Why not redeem us once on the basis of our own merits? And this is the Chiddush, this is the novel thought with regard to the Sfat Emet. What does he say?
Okay, so the problem I have with this is, first of all, I could see some people maybe returning and saying we really shouldn't be out in the desert doing this, but it's kind of like, it's the old joke, the guy says, praise to God, I need to win the lotto, I need to win the lotto, and then God comes along a little bit later and says, come on, gotta help me a little bit by buying a ticket. Well, you could say, based on what was said here, well, I drove to Hallelujah Junction, but the line was too long, so I turned around and came back. So why didn't I win? Would that be the same argument?
Perhaps,
Well,
close.
We could also argue the Golden Calf incident, which was, how much after this, was that
40 days?
40 days later, says that even at that point in time, they were still undeserved. Right? So it took the generation of 40 years.
To sort of wipe out the people who were problematic within the generation, right? So Shavuot would have been Matan Torah, but Moses had gone up and down, the mountain a couple of times, so there was a little space in time, more than 40 days.
And the other problem I have with the way this is, what you're saying in here, is, it's like, I believe in God. I'm a firm believer in God. I strongly believe in God. So I'm going to jump in my car and I'm going to drive down towards that concrete block wall. It's at 120 mile an hour faster than me because I know God's going to save me before I get to that wall. I don't think God tells us to go back and keep tempting faith like that.
that's the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Tov.
I think my question is, do these examples, are they the same as what this underlying midrash is we were taken out of Egypt, we didn't deserve it, but God wanted us to earn that.
Mm-hmm.
So we sort of went back towards Egypt a little bit, and that's what the Sfat Emes is asking. So what does this teaches us the answer to the question on this pasuk?
Yeah, it just, like I said, you stand on the edge of the cliff just because you believe in God doesn't mean you aren't going to fall off,
Could we get that? All true. So
I don't think God meant us to go and, and to put our lives in danger to show that we deserve things.
okay, all right. So moving on to what the Sfat Emes is talking about. So why did we leave Egypt and then have to sort of turn back a little bit before we were actually backed up against the sea.
They didn't have the
He's
road
saying-
map.
He's saying that Shlomo HaMelech teaches us the answer to this question with a pasuk. Mashchani acharecha, let's see, narutza. Okay, so draw me and then I will run after you. So without the initial godly revelation of the Exodus, we would not have been able to stand up to the test of faith demanded of us by being required to return towards the Egyptian army. The miraculous Exodus taught us that God is with us. We use the miraculous Exodus from Egypt to strengthen our faith and trust in God. In the merit of our strong faith and trust, we were saved at the Red Sea. So that's what he's saying. It wasn't that, we left and we kept going. We had to merit our salvation. So that's why God said, well, by the way, turn back and, get yourself backed up against the sea. So we've got the next paragraph here, a little more on.
But they didn't have to do that, because if you read the story of Exodus and examine it very carefully, what about the fire that they carried? And Pharaoh's army could see where that fire was also. So they didn't have to go back and tempt them, they knew where they were.
Okay, so you're saying that we were all ready to be saved because our slavery had completely left us by the time we started taking the first step out of the boundary of Egypt.
No, because it took 40 years to get rid of that slavery. It took
Well, the 40 years didn't
generations.
come until the aftermath of the golden calf, right? So if we missed the golden calf,
So you're saying that if there had not been a golden calf, we would have gone straight to Israel?
that's the argument.
The 2-day trip, yeah.
That's the argument. It would have been a lot quicker.
Yeah, it would have, because there was instances when they were approaching.
Would you like some more? Because we have plenty.
Actually, yeah, I'd
All
love
right.
that.
Is it pink?
So would you mind picking up, this is why specifically, and I'm actually going to look for more here.
This is why specifically at the splitting of the sea, the Torah tells us, V'yishur Adonai b'yom ahu et Israel v'yosha. Okay, on that day God saved Israel, but in fact God saved us 7 days earlier. And it is our miraculous rescue from Egypt that we are required to remember each day rather than the rescue at the sea. Still, the Torah calls the rescue at the sea the salvation because we deserved it. Since we deserved it, it was a true salvation, one with a lasting effect.
Okay. Dan?
Okay, let's see. Also, because we were being saved on our own merits, Chazal teach us that at the time, that's plural?
Chazal, Chochabim, Zikaron, Livracha.
The sages, yeah, okay. Teach us that at the time of the splitting of the sea, we were being judged whether to be saved or destroyed with the Egyptians. We were not judged at the time of the Exodus, because the Exodus, as we've stated, was in the merit of God's promise to our forefathers rather than our own merits. Sefet Emet is teaching us that God wants us to earn closeness to Him in order to help us. He first gives us an undeserved experience of closeness to Him. If we take advantage of this experience by using it as a stepping stone to become even closer to God, we are rewarded with God's reciprocation.
Okay, so that's the kind of as above, so below. So when people move,
Okay, I'm going to get the door.
God moves towards us, we move towards God. When we move towards God, God moves towards us. Okay, so, all right, so,
Sorry about
and actually, if we could probably shut that front door because I can hear in the background.
No,
Okay,
there's somebody.
there's someone coming
I'm
in,
assuming
but
it's
you'd
someone
like
already
it
coming.
closed.
You want the sliding door?
Just the door that goes into the front room because the.
Okay, I get up, I get down.
Okay, could we get a copy from her?
Yeah, it's right there in front of her.
Okay,
Where may I sit?
Right there. Watch your foot.
okay, so, and actually, if you're sitting there, then the next page is, or the next paragraph is yours. It's the last one on the page. Now this actually is,
The sages said, whoever derives honor in the downfall of a friend has no share in the world to come. There is a character trait in many of us to derive pleasure from someone else's downfall. and we should work to eliminate it. Let us rather strive to share our neighbor's burdens and rejoice in his triumphs.
Okay, so this is another thread that kind of links to the seventh day of Pesach. We're looking at how it is that we can move in terms of midot, cleaning up not only the comments, not only the ego that we've got internally, right? That we can act tul hayesh, we're letting go of the ego, but what do we do to merit our salvation? Think about where we were. If we consider ourselves as leaving Egypt at the time of Seder number 1, right? So we got 7 days, and that's when we actually crossed the sea, according to tradition. So what is it that God was asking of us in this week of time? What was God saying? Oh yeah, I let you out of Egypt, but you didn't quite deserve it. So move back a little bit towards Egypt, and then we backed up against the ocean until, what was that guy's name in the Midrash?
The Shom.
Nachshon was the one who jumped in up to his neck, according to Midrash.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it that we're supposed to be working on anyway during this period of time?
But then there's other Midrash that says all the Jews stayed completely dry, and the Egyptians all sank when they arrived. So
Fair enough.
Yeah, but according to Universal Studios, the Egyptians got to the middle before.
Oh yes, right. The Universal Studios had another Midrash.
Yeah.
But what are we doing? What are we doing in this time period? What is today in terms of the Omer?
Gevurah Sheb Chesed.
So Chesed. Sheba Gevurah. Okay, what day of the Omer are we on?
Second.
Okay, so I don't know if you guys have like cool apps or cool ways of counting the Omer, but we did post one on our Facebook, so I thought we'd go through that. This is one that I've used from year to year, which is really quite lovely, and I'll pass it around. Spiritual guide to the counting of the Omer. I mean, we're not just supposed to be cruising between now and Pesach. We're supposed to be working on ourselves, eternally evolving, if you will, in this 49-day period. There's exercises. This is kind of like Musar work, and I'll just read the exercise of the day because it's a much longer discussion to say exactly what is Gevurah Sheba Chesed, but briefly, help others on their terms, not yours. Apply yourself to their specific needs, even if it takes effort. Do others take advantage of my giving nature? Am I hurting others by becoming their crutch? Am I hurting my children by forcing them upon them my value system? Do I respect the one I love, or is it selfish? Am I sensitive to his or her feelings and attitudes, etc., etc., etc.? Healthy love must always include an element of discipline and discernment. So you can find this also at meaningfullife.org, which I'll
That's 6 weeks of discussion right there on that.
There's huge amounts. I mean, and we're moving through these so quickly. It's hard to really get our hands on this to sort of understand. So
It's like a morning affirmation, though. It's a really good way to kind of reshape the focus for the day.
or an evening affirmation,
Right.
because we count in the evening, right?
Right.
So
But when I start my day with it.
when yes,
What is the website one more time?
meaningfullife.org. So let me just pull that up here. This is meaningfullife.org.
And it's important that you go to the website because you can pay way too much money on any other site.
So at any rate, meaningfullife.org, daily reflection. This is Gevurah Chesed, discipline and loving kindness. And they all have little ways of sort of like sharing that notion. Here he says, healthy love must include an element of discipline and discernment. Same quote out of here. So you can donate to it if you're using his information. It's lovely. He does a very nice job. Okay, so if you want other ways to help remember to count the Omer, which is done in the evening, we've got Diane found one for the iPod, and I've got one which I'll pass around.
Do you want to see the one I got for the iPhone?
Yeah, so why don't we just
I have one.
you have one on iPod? Okay, all right, so.
Is it at
there's a number of-
Sephiros? Is it
We're gonna
Sephiros?
pass around the apps because this is
Mine
an
is
important part of being Jewish these
Theros
days, right?
Glow.
So how did we count the Omar before all this?
And this one has an alarm. The old Omar counters, the old
I
apps.
think the point is, if you count the Omer, you're counting.
Yeah.
So you just count. But if you don't count the Omer, then how do you know what Shavuot is? Shavuot is exactly what you haven't been counting.
And we're not just counting. We're not only counting, but we're character refining with any luck.
And I think the nice thing about having the apps on the phone, though, is even if we read what we have at home, we can carry it with us.
Sure.
And it has reminders and.
If the backlight has gone off, Judy, just click on the top, so it's, are you good? Okay, did you get it?
There's an activity in the family Haggadah, which I used to use, that reminds me of this.